Welcome back to another episode of Why We're Fans, the podcast where we find out why you're the fan of your team. Of course, it's your hosts, Gennaro and Duran Munez.
How's it going, guys?
How you doing today, Duran?
Not bad, man.
Not bad. All right. Today we got John from subreddit, and he is a fan
The
of
Chargers subreddit.
The Chargers subreddit, the LA Chargers. Still so weird to say that. I'm still so used to saying San Diego. You know what I mean?
I know. It's funny. So I live in Costa Mesa, and the Chargers are right near me. So they actually moved like a mile from where I live, so it became really easy for me to like switch over. But everyone else, I could understand why you can't.
I hope you get to visit that new stadium, man. The new stadium looks sick.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I got a confession to make to you, man. I just got to apologize. Before Herbert came out, I did not think he was going to do this good. So I got to say congrats, and I'm tipping my hat to you for sure, because Herbert looks like the real deal, man. I'm liking how he played.
Well,
go ahead.
I don't think anyone figured he'd be this good. I was kind of on I was a little higher on him than most. So I thought if you sit him for a year or whatever, he's going to be really good. But I didn't think first game right out of the gates, he'd be on fire. So I don't think anyone really could predict that.
Yeah, I for sure thought he was going to have like a little red shirt year, but I mean, I guess that's, poor Tyrod. That happens to him every single year, But...
I know. Well, this one is just so weird, the way it all played out, because I think with the other situations, he kind of expected the rookie's going to take over at some point, and for it to be a year, he went into it expecting to play the full year, and then just one game in, a doctor punctures his lung is just the weirdest way for that to all play out.
Crazy,
man, for sure.
Well, John, I reached out to you because I see you're really active on the Chargers subreddit. I even saw you going back and forth with a couple people today. I love it. So we know that you're a true Chargers fan, and let's start from the beginning. How did you become a Chargers fan?
So actually, it's probably not the most interesting story, but my high school girlfriend, her family was really into the Chargers, and they sort of just got me into them. Mm-hmm. But it's now that high school girlfriend's actually my wife, and we got kids and everything, so it's a little less goofy. But yeah, just I was hanging out around her house. They were really into the Chargers, and this was back when Breeze was still their quarterback. So just kind of casually started watching him and got more and more into him, because I feel like that was about the right time to get into the Chargers. Their peak was kind of early 2000s. But then just kind of over the years, my fandom has grown and grown.
I see it. Have you taken over her family as the biggest Chargers fan?
I'd say so, yeah. Well, it's actually funny. So me and my wife and her brother have been surpassed the rest of the family, just in because her dad knows who the quarterback is. So he knows Rivers, knows Herbert, but he I could be the type of person that names their backup left tackle and stuff. And my wife and her brother are the same kind of way, and the rest of the family just you guys are crazy.
Yeah, the 7th round draft pick.
Yeah. I'm looking at who'd we get in undrafted free agency, and they're like, what the hell is that? So
so you were the first to kind of look at Austin Eckler, man. You knew who he was right off the bat.
Oh yeah, well, you know what? Well, actually, I can't remember which one of you said you're a 49ers fan.
That's me right here.
The game where Austin Eckler in the preseason just popped, and this is probably the best preseason game I've ever seen by any player, was that fourth preseason game back in 2017, where he was just going off. Every time he touched the ball, it was 20 yards. And
even on special teams, man, he was a gunner, and he made all those tackles, man.
Yeah,
he was a beat.
It's crazy. Yeah, it just sounds so stupid to be the best preseason performance I've ever seen, but that was definitely what it was with Eckler.
I was hoping that you guys would kind of put him, release him and put on your practice squad so we can swoop him up.
Oh yeah, he's yeah. Well, yeah, he's a big fan favorite. Actually, the funny thing is, I go to the same gym as Eckler, so I see him around every so often.
So you guys are best friends.
Well, oh yeah, best friends. It's so funny though, because he's a guy who reminds you that football small is not small, because he looks so small on the field, and then I go and see him at the gym, and he's the biggest dude I've ever seen. He's just completely jacked, and 5'10" is still a few inches on me, so I'm damn, this guy's massive, but he looks so small on the field.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know you're in the area where the Chargers are. Did you ever go to any of the games live? Did you know anyone that was a season ticket holder where you could maybe snag a ticket from them?
I didn't know anyone who was a season ticket holder. Did go to a handful of games down at Qualcomm.
Mm-hmm.
So just a few actually. Like, NFL tickets are just so expensive that you can't really like afford to go on your own until you get a little older in life. So the first time I actually went to Qualcomm was back in 2016. And so that was like actually the game where Melvin Gordon set like a career high for rushing yards. He like went off, had like 200 yards. So that was pretty cool. It's actually kind of funny because I've only been to 3 Chargers games. So I've been to one at Qualcomm, one actually at Lambeau Stadium, and one at SoFi. And every time I go, there's actually a record set at the game, like a Chargers record.
Yeah. So you went to a game this year, SoFi?
No, did I say SoFi? I meant StubHub.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, SoFi would be cool, yeah.
Okay. And you got to do a trip to Lambeau. That's awesome.
Yeah. My family's actually mostly Packers fans.
Okay.
Actually, my mom's cousin flies the Packers jet. So he's got all these hookups. And so if we go out east, get hooked up with Packers tickets. And yes, I got to watch them like the box seats and everything is pretty cool.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's some good insight. I asked you if you've been to a game because I wondered if Eckler saw you yelling in the stands and was like, hey, that's the guy from the gym.
The only game I went to where he was even on the team was, I went to the StubHub and the Bengals. I feel like he might have been injured that game or something, but and I don't think he'd recognize him. I just see him out like the corner of my eye. I'm just like some random. I haven't actually talked to him or anything.
Yeah. You got it. Do you know your first Chargers memorabilia? Was it a jersey, a hat, something old school?
I'm not really like that much of a memorabilia guy. Like I don't really even own much stuff. I kind of like, this is probably unpopular among Chargers fans, but I think that their logo like is a bit goofy, just like a little bolt. And so, I think that when it's on a player, like I think their uniforms and everything look really cool, but I'm just like, do I really want to wear a hat with just like a little bolt on it?
Yeah.
So I don't really own too much memorabilia. I actually just bought like my first jersey just recently. It was a Bosa jersey, but definitely. But don't really own too much.
There you go. I know you're in a division where I think there's a couple teams you can consider your rivals, but who do you think the number one team is?
I personally I think I always just hate the team that's doing the best. And so it's pretty obvious right now that that's the Chiefs.
Yep.
And so even for a few years, because there's that like post Peyton Manning, like Alex Smith period where it's just like, even though the Chiefs weren't that good, they were kind of like running the division. And so, for me, like the past 5-6 years, it's been like, I hate the Chiefs so much, and especially but the one thing that you could always rip on them about is they hadn't won a playoff game in 25 years.
Yep.
And so you'd be like, you keep winning the division, but you guys suck. You guys just get to the playoffs. You don't do anything, but now they got Mahomes. So it's really become kind of impossible to rip on their fans.
Exactly.
It's just
they used to be how I felt with Philly. I used to always be able to say, well, you guys haven't won a Super Bowl. Then of course they squeaked one out.
I know.
With the backup quarterback.
I know. So they got a kind of legendary Super Bowl run.
Yeah, exactly.
The Chargers have, never gotten a Super Bowl. The Chiefs were in Super Bowl 1 or something. So it was so long ago that you just be like, I'm not even going to count it. And I'm going to act like you've basically not won a Super Bowl, but there's really nothing to make fun of them about now. So it's become difficult.
The future is bright for them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You got anything else about his fandom? How it all started?
No, I don't. But so since you don't go to a lot of games, I take it you watch it at home or at other friend's house or even at a bar. Do you have a game day tradition when you're watching the game? Whether you have to have a certain beer or you need to wear a certain pair of shoes, any kind of superstition or tradition you got?
Actually one thing so I got a 3-year-old son, and one time I was in Vegas, watching, so it was this weekend where the Chargers were playing the Steelers. And my wife's grandma was watching him, and the Chargers were losing big time. And at halftime we said, called her the grandma. We said, put on the Chargers jersey on our son. He was like 1 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put on the jersey, and then they mounted like this huge, like 20-point comeback, like won in the final seconds. It was probably one of the funnest games I've ever watched, like anywhere. And so anytime now, like we kind of use it strategically. So if like they're down, we'll like put the Chargers jersey on the son. And it's actually worked a few times. So like that same season, they were down really big to the Chiefs. So we said, okay, it's halftime. Let's put the jersey on our son, and it worked again. So we just use it when it's needed most. So that's kind of our tradition.
There you go.
I see both of those games right here. You ended up beating Pittsburgh 33-30, 16-point comeback in that same season. The Chiefs 29-28.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah, those were two really fun games. I feel like it's always funner when you have a comeback rather than just stomp a team the whole time.
Yep.
Oh, for sure.
Totally agree. All right, moving on. We definitely want to know who your favorite player is, but we're going to take a guess first. And I'm going to go first on this one just because he might be my all-time favorite player just to watch. And it's LaDainian Tomlinson. I just felt like when I was in high school, when I was growing up, he was the best football player that I remember seeing. That's also when I was getting into fantasy football, and he was like the number one fantasy player for, 5-6 years straight. So I'm going with LT. Who you got, G?
I'm going to go with Junior Seau because growing up, honestly, he was like the standard of linebackers. He was just a monster coming out of USC. And if not him, I'm going to go with another linebacker, Sean Merriman.
Oh, okay.
Both good guesses, but actually, I probably went the typical route. And I'm going to say the quarterbacks. My favorite player is Rivers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
With his throwing motion.
I know he's got a goofy throwing motion, and I know a lot of non-Chargers fans, dislike him a lot, just because he's got like the sort of on-field antics.
I love them. I love them so much, man.
I think it turns off a lot of people because he does kind of get like really sort of whiny on the field, but he also just like emotes in every direction. So like when things are going good, like there's just like, you can look him up. There's these GIFs of him just having like the best reactions ever. When things are down, he's got that really kind of face and like attitude, but just the quarterback, steady rock. Like I said, I got into Chargers back when Breeze was the quarterback, but I wasn't that into him. So basically like my whole Chargers fandom, he's been like the guy, like, every down, hasn't missed a game. So it's just kind of a rock. And he's got the funny throwing motion. He's got some, stuff you can kind of rip on him for, but I just, love the guy.
His 20 kids.
Oh yeah. It's just so funny. Yeah. The other thing is just how many kids he's got. And he's just a kind of a goofy character, I feel like in the league. And, it's good seeing him succeed on different teams. Kind of sad to see him go, but definitely I'd say my favorite.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's always funny to listen to his mic'd up, for sure, because he doesn't cuss. So it's like, oh man, what the flip? You know what I mean?
I know, yeah. Like, I've been kind of like, especially with the Chargers this season getting out of contention. The Colts have become my like honorary team, especially like in the postseason, and like I've been watching like his mic'd ups and just also seeing like another fan base kind of who hated him for his antics kind of like start to get it, like, oh my god, this guy's such a weirdo, and I love it. So it's really fun to watch.
Yeah, I remember when he got helped up, I forget who it was against, but he's like, yeah, you like that? He's like, man, I just helped you up. He's like, I don't give a fuck, man, I don't give a freak.
Yeah, I remember that too. I can't remember who it was. There's also like another really good mic'd up one where he's playing the Jags, I think last year, and like he's like 90-yard touchdown, and he's just like shouting in this guy's ear. I think it was Josh Allen, their defensive ends.
I think it was the same one. The same.
Yeah. I think it could be. Yeah, he's I think like the best mic'd up I've ever seen. Like obviously biased, but I feel like even the rest of the league likes it.
Yeah, there's a ton of compilations on YouTube.
Yeah,
if you just look at Phillip Rivers trash talk.
Yeah, for sure.
Even his post game, interviews, he's always coming out with the bolo tie.
Oh yeah, the snakeskin boots.
You can always expect something, you know what I mean? Yeah, snakeskin boots for sure, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you on the spot right now, but what pick was your new quarterback? Sorry about that.
Herbert.
What pick was he overall?
6th.
6th. Okay. Phillip Rivers was the 4th overall pick back in 2004. And now he's your guys' all-time leading passer. I mean, he was the Chargers there, like you said, never missed a game. He was the constant guy. How did you feel when he eventually left and went on to the Colts?
I was pretty bummed that day, and I wasn't sure. Like, there's like the tweet, that like everything's got a tweet associated with it, and I just remember reading and thinking, are they making a big mistake? Because like he was bad last year, but the line was like I think the main culprit, and I think like the way he's playing with the Colts, that's kind of like been like, oh yeah, once you put a good line in front of him, he plays well. So I just was like, it's gonna be weird having no Rivers. I don't know if this is the right move. I kind of felt like they were still a little bit in win now mode, even though they didn't win very many games last year. I'm just like, well, if they get like all these pieces fitting, like, and why would you have a rookie quarterback? So I wasn't a huge fan of the move at the time, but I think in retrospect, it's just like everything kind of worked out so perfectly. Like he's doing well, Herbert's doing well. Like you could really, like as a Chargers fan, you can't really ask for much more.
And I felt like the writing was kind of on the wall for a while. It wasn't sudden. There's kind of a build up, and I think Chargers fans knew that it was slowly coming to an end.
Yeah, there was just like a few games last year where you're like I don't know how you defend like keeping you around next year after that game. There was like a Chiefs game last year and a Raiders game last year where like 2 primetime games, and he threw, I think, between those 2 games 8 picks. So you're just like, damn, like
he's not afraid to do that.
Yeah, he's a very YOLO quarterback.
Yep. Exactly.
When you don't have like the line and you don't like, he's got good receivers for sure, but just like I feel like when you're 38, 37, whatever he was, you just need a good line, and that's what the Colts have. So worked out well.
I always know when you have a guy like Phillip Rivers that ends up being the all-time leading passer on your team, and multiple time Pro Bowler, 8-time Pro Bowler. If he's Batman, there's always a Robin. Is there a wide receiver or someone that you think of that Phillip Rivers and him were just always on the same page?
I feel like it's got to be Keenan Allen. Like, there's other guys back in the day like Vincent Jackson, but I feel like Vincent Jackson is like kind of like an elite like physical specimen.
Yep.
Whereas like I feel like Keenan Allen's thing is he just gets like in a mind meld with whatever quarterback is back there. Like, I mean, we're seeing it this year with Herbert, and it's just like, and the other thing is like whenever Keenan Allen would miss a game, like the offense would just be like, just go to crap. Like there was actually in 2015, I think it was, where it was like they were kind of chugging along, and then Keenan Allen, he lacerated his kidneys, and the offense just like went to crap. Like, you hear about like players that's like a Jenga piece, or like the straw that stirs the drink. Besides quarterback, like Keenan Allen seems like the guy that's the Jenga piece.
I know we're both huge Keenan Allen fans. We've been talking about his route running, his stem, everything like that for years. And especially fantasy football and stuff like that. He's definitely one of our favorites. I love Keenan Allen. Can I just throw one more name at you just to talk about for a second?
Sure.
Antonio Gates.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Antonio Gates, another pretty much living legend for the Chargers. He never played for anyone else. And I mean, when I think of Phillip Rivers, I kind of think of Antonio Gates too, catching pretty. I always think of red zone targets. He was like a red zone king to me.
Yeah, he was like, just such a red zone like champion, and like that was the thing. Like if you compare him like to guys like Jason Witten, or people that are about the same age, play this position, you look like Jason Witten's got like way more yards but way fewer touchdowns, because it's just like Gates was so good in the red zone. He kind of also like was the first guy that was like, let's take a basketball player and put him at tight end. And you've seen guys like Jimmy Graham. I'm blanking out on the other guys, but that was just like the first of his kind.
Jordan Reed, Evan Ingram. I think he kind of much set the mold. I don't want to diss him at all, but it's a non-blocking tight end type of position where he was there to catch the ball. Everyone knew that, and you still couldn't stop him.
Exactly.
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, even took Vernon Davis. I know him and Antonio Gates had that great battle between like the single season tight end record of 4 touchdowns. I know that I know Vernon Davis, even though he wasn't blocking tight end probably until like his third or fourth year, but it just seemed like Antonio Gates was a full package coming out of, K-State.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like one of the probably, I don't know where he'd rank all time, but it's like at worst like probably like 8th, 10th or whatever. But it's a lot of fun to watch. And it's just so weird because even like in his final season, you'd be like, you are so slow. Like, how are you getting open? Like, why are you this open, this slow? I mean, the same thing with the other tight ends when they get old, like Jason Witten, I feel like it's a bit the same, but it just doesn't make any sense. But it was also really funny, like recently, like I went back and watched some older games, just like some little highlights, and you're like, damn, he wasn't always this old and slow.
Yeah.
Like, he used to actually have like physical talents, but like as those diminished, his like mental abilities or whatever just compensated.
He's definitely up there in some of my all-time favorite tight ends, but Pro Football Reference has him as the number 2 tight end of all time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have a Hall of Fame monitor, and he's only behind Tony Gonzalez on that. So he'll be there shortly.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, sometimes with this, like comparing across eras, is mine like. Obviously, I'd say Tony Gonzalez is better, but then you're like, what about someone like Mike Ditka? I never watched him.
Yep.
Or
Taylor Winslow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mike Ditka, they got past 10. So same thing. I never watched him, but it goes Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Shannon Sharp. Those are their top 3. The next guy, Dave Casper. I don't think either one of us watched, or any of us, and then Jason Witten.
Top 3 all AFC West.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I know. And actually, the best tight end in the game right now is also AFC West. Well,
Kelsey
might argue. I know there is some recency bias because I would have said before the season, like, oh yeah, George Kittle's like the most all around, and I still think that it's just like it's with Kittle being out and Kelsey probably having a career year. It's just hard to like not see that, but for sure, Kittle could definitely have a bounce back.
I think it's the quarterback.
Oh yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
Although I will say, in Kelsey's argument for Kelsey is he was still producing pretty well even with Alex Smith. So there's something to be said. But
Yep.
Alex Smith loves his running backs and tight ends.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
G, you got anything else on Phillip Rivers, Antonio Gates, anyone else like that?
No, not really. I mean, I was going to ask about Chris Chambers, but looking it up, I don't think he really played much with Phillip Rivers. He was kind of the tail end.
Yeah. I feel like 2010 or something like that.
Yeah, pretty sure. I mean, I remember him being on that when fantasy football first started the thing, where the commercials were like, "Hey, pick me. Here's why." And like him and Chris Cooley were like the top kind of.
Oh yeah.
That's funny.
Sure. So he was definitely one of my favorite receivers. And then it's funny because when it comes to fantasy, Keenan Allen he always has to be on my team. If he's not on my team, I'm always worried. I mean, I know I didn't do good in this fantasy year, but Keenan Allen's always my top dog.
Yeah. He's got like a very like high floor, I think that he's always gonna get his catches. So like you don't have to worry like, oh, he might have a 200-yard game one week and then a 0-yard game. It's always like, at least 50 plus yards.
Yeah. For his size, playing the slot is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he's out here on the West Coast too, so we always got to see him even when he played for the Pac-12, for Berkeley.
Yeah.
I know he ended his career with a torn ACL, but he came back strong. And I think you guys got to steal. I think it was the 3rd round that he got picked.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, moving on. We want to know who your favorite coach was. I mean, you guys had a couple coaches throughout the last 20 years where I've really been paying attention. Marty Schottenheimer, of course, Anthony Lynn. I think as of today or yesterday, he just got let go. Mike McCoy, and then Norv Turner. Do you have a favorite coach at any of those guys, or it could be someone from before then?
I feel like the story of the Chargers over the past 15 years or so is always they have bad coaches.
I feel you.
So I really I'd struggle to answer that. I'd say maybe Anthony Lynn, just because he at least seems like a cool dude. Like there's never been a bad word said about him as like a person, as like a motivator, as a leader. It's just all the game management stuff.
Yep.
Whereas I feel like, Mike McCoy was just so milquetoast and boring, and the team, like, I've never seen the team look as bad at points as they did under McCoy. And then Norv, it just felt like he was maybe if you actually look at what win-loss records, he might be like one of the more successful Chargers coaches, but it's always just like you had like peak Chargers and you just could never get him there. So he's a bit frustrating. And then, like I got, based on sort of the time I got into the Chargers, like I was it was Marty Ball, and he was pretty good, but I think people look at him a little bit with rose tinted glasses, because like they went 14-2, probably like their best Charger season was under him. But also he was really bad with the postseason, like no matter what team he's on. Like, and so I think, a lot of Chargers fans will be like, oh, if only they kept Marty, then we would have won a Super Bowl. But it's also like, Marty only won like 3 playoff games his whole career or something. It's just some ridiculous number. He's got like, he was kind of like, if you got Andy Reid's like postseason reputation and like turned it up to 11, that was kind of Marty Ball. And I think people kind of forget that a lot. So I don't really like any of our coaches, but I think Anthony Lynn's like the coolest as a person. So
there you go. Yeah. I was just looking back on YouTube and stuff about the Chargers past coaches. Marty Schottenheimer, definitely very unlucky, especially in the postseason. And you mentioned he did that 14-2 season. He got fired after that season.
I know, yeah.
Which is unbelievable. Only losing 2 games, still getting fired. I mean, I think they're just, tired of those postseason losses. But he had great teams.
I think
get him over the hump.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like probably like doing so well and then just being a one and done, probably like it almost amplified the loss. And also, I feel like that team was just so stacked. It kind of reminds me of a bit of like, do you remember like how the 2014 Broncos had like John Fox?
Yep.
And they they made like the AFC Championship game and then they fired him. And you're kind of like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But you're just like, is this guy, we got a stacked roster. Is this going to be the guy that takes us all the way? And I feel like actually the same thing kind of happened because Chargers, didn't win the Super Bowl, but the year after they fired Marty, they went to the AFC Championship game. He didn't want a playoff game in, forever. So I feel like it's a bit the same logic, just like a step lower. Like instead of winning a Super Bowl like the Broncos, they make the AFC Championship. So that's just me trying to make some rationalization of firing a 14-2 coach.
Yeah,
I always compared him to I always held him in the same boat as Marvin Lewis because he was the same way with the Bengals. You know what I mean? Like he'd always postseason and lose first or second round for sure. But Anthony Lynn, I like that choice. I mean, I saw him in Hard Knocks. I thought he was a super cool dude. The only thing I didn't like about him is that he always held around an unlit cigar. It's like light that thing, man.
Oh yeah.
Please just light that thing. Man. Like, come on. I want to know what cigar you ever had. If it wasn't worth, lighting it up, then why are you holding it in your mouth, man? But
I wonder if it could be like I didn't know that. My thought was maybe like, imagine you were totally like addicted to cigars. I feel like that's a funny thing, but imagine your way of quitting was just having an unlit cigar around.
Yep.
So
I don't know if you know Andrew Dice Clay he does that with cigarettes. He's a comedian and he quit smoking cigarettes, but he still buys packs and just puts them unlit in his mouth.
That's so funny. Yeah. I remember Andrew Dice Clay always had the leather jackets and
exactly. Yeah. One last thing that I just wanted to mention, Marty Schottenheimer. I know I watched so much. I kind of got into a Marty Schottenheimer loop just from watching, now he's dealing with Alzheimer's, which is pretty sad. But the coaches underneath him that he's produced is pretty insane. From Wade Phillips, Bruce Arians, Bill Coward, Tony Dungy, Herm Edwards, Hugh Jackson, Mike McCarthy. I mean, all those guys have had major success in the NFL.
Yeah. It's actually, he's got a pretty good coaching tree. And like one thing like about say like the 2006 Chargers, which was his last year, is like, you look at, you got all these big names on the roster, like, Rivers, LT, Gates, Weddle wasn't on the team. I like Cromartie, all these dudes. But then if you look at the coaching staff, it's like like the linebacker coach was Ron Rivera. The defensive coordinator was Wade Phillips. There's like a lot of like big names just on the coaching staff too. Definitely was prolific, and the guys have had, you know, a lot of success elsewhere.
Yeah, I know his son's the OC for Seattle Seahawks right now, and he's doing a solid job with. I know it's pretty easy with Russ.
I know,
but, he's doing a solid job for sure.
He's getting, his son is getting some like you know, head coaching hype, but I also feel kind of like maybe you do, where it's just like oh, run. It's like, okay, now it's a deep bomb, and you got like the best deep ball thrower in the NFL, or one of the best, and just like I don't know if there's much to it. He's got like a beautiful deep ball. It's not like a super strong arm, maybe like Mahomes, but it's really got a.
I love his deep ball.
I think my brother can attest to this as well, because my brother's a baseball player. But when he's on the run and he throws it, he looks just like, honestly, like a infielder, like he is, making that ground ball and throwing it to first base on the run. It looks so pretty coming out of his hands. I'm like, damn it, dude, this guy's a beast. And I'm a Yankee fan, and he's in the Yankees organization, so I got love for him, but I also got so much hatred for him, because like, damn, you're so good, but you're in my, you're my division, and you're my team's rival. Like, I hate you. I love you, man.
You definitely can relate, with Mahomes and stuff. So I'm just like, man, like for a good like chunk of time I was in like denial, and like, he's gonna come crashing down to earth. He's like, you know, this whole like charade's gonna end eventually. But then at some point you're like, damn, you're a good player. I hate you, but you're so good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he beat us in the Super Bowl, so I was pissed off about them. And you can tell every time we were watching a game and I'm hanging out with Duran and he's on red zone, I'm like, I just want Pat Mahomes to take one hit. I just want him to last one single time, like straight up. But you know what I mean? Like, he's so elusive, he's so smart. Just the same way with Russ. He's so elusive, But
he's biased. The Niners just lost to him in the Super Bowl, so.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'll say it. I'm biased for sure.
Yeah.
I love Patty. All right. Moving on just a little bit further. We want to know, I know you said your girlfriend and her family, or your wife at the now, got you into being a Chargers fan. Do you remember your first Chargers memory? Could it be those powder blues? I always remember those.
I know you guys sent me that question, but I honestly don't really remember my first Chargers memory. It's just kind of, again, like I got into it through like almost osmosis. I remember early on just being like, oh yeah, they got this quarterback with Breeze, and then I remember thinking, oh, now they got one named Rivers, and thinking it was funny that like this team that was kind of like on in the background at my wife's house, or girlfriend at the time house, like how it's like two naturey names. They also, it's funny because they keep it's like they had like Leaf and Rivers and Breeze, and now they got their backup quarterback Stick. So I don't really have a specific memory though. Like, what's the first time I remember seeing him? I mean, obviously, like I also remember like as a kid, just like in the background, my dad would watch football and then see like the Chargers and stuff, but nothing that's really like an interesting story or something that sticks out.
A couple of things that I just remember. I think what really put them on the map for me, like I've already mentioned, LaDainian Tomlinson. He probably is my favorite player ever. I went to a Raiders game versus Chargers just to watch him play. But I remember, I was born in 89. So in 2002, I was 12, 13 years old, and just watching those seasons where he would have 2,000 plus yards. He was throwing for touchdowns. He was great out of the backfield, catching the ball. And of course, rushing was unbelievable. So that's where I really, really remember the Chargers.
Yeah, actually, there was two thoughts. Like, one is going to the LT versus the Raiders was like ridiculous back in the day. Like you should see his just like career stats against the Raiders. It's like he like averaged like 120 yards or something versus the Raiders. I know in 2006 he actually scored more points than the Raiders did, like him personally, which is kind of a crazy stat. But like, and then also another stat that's like just popped into my head is like, Herbert actually set the franchise record for most touchdowns this season, which is kind of crazy for a rookie, but also he just barely eclipsed LT, who had 33 touchdowns that year, which is like insane for a running back. I mean, I think he had like 17 rushing touchdowns, like 14 receiving touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns. It's like that's got to be like one of the greatest seasons by
I definitely think it is. I haven't seen a running back do that since. I know McCaffrey does his thing catching and receiving, but LT was such a threat. The only reason he threw the ball is because the entire defense would run after him anytime he had touched the ball. So it was
exactly,
they had to do it. It was too easy.
I mean, it's I haven't really seen a running back like that since, I guess, peak Peterson, and I mean Henry's having a crazy year, but
yeah,
I feel LT, I'm a bit biased, but it was just next level.
I'm on the same page with you. The other first memory that I have, I don't remember how old I was. I was probably 9 or 10 years old, and we were picking out jersey numbers, and my buddy beside me picked out number 55. He was a linebacker, and I remember saying, "Oh, like Derek Brooks," and he said, "No, like Junior Seau."
Yeah.
So we've mentioned him a little bit earlier. Born in San Diego, went to USC, gets drafted by the Chargers once again. He's just an all-time great, and I'm pretty sure he leads you guys in tackles for all time.
Oh, it's got to be. He
leads the Chargers in tackles by 500 all time.
That's pretty crazy.
That is.
I remember my first memory of the Chargers. It's January 29th, 1995. It might be one of your least favorites, but it was,
Yeah, okay. As soon as you start saying the date.
Yeah.
49-26. I just know that Jerry Rice and Steve Young went off. The monkey went off. Steve Young back.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like because I remember my older brother, who was a 49ers fan at the time, he had a tan hat with a red bill. It looks super ugly to this day, but he rocked it all the time, and I loved it. And I'm pretty sure I still have it. But I remember that because I love Junior Seau. I thought he was a beast, but I mean, I was a Steve Young fan to this day. I think he's the best quarterback in the 49ers history. But I remember that because it was against the Chargers, and I remember the Chargers being so dominant. I remember them winning, I want to say like 12 games that year, but their defense was just, I thought their defense was going to give us problems for sure. But we did what we did to them. It may be one of your least favorites, but definitely.
Well, like I said, I got into the Chargers in like the early 2000s, and so that was more like one. I was like, okay, I'm getting it. So let me look at their history. I'm like, oh, so I know that. Like, I think I saw that was like the biggest point spread for a Super Bowl because everyone just kind of expected them to be like slaughtered, and then they ended up getting slaughtered. But
49-26.
Being AFC champions is not like the worst thing to happen. That
no, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, I know you guys haven't had a Super Bowl win or anything like that, but you guys have had some division or definitely some tough division losses and conference losses. Do you have a favorite memory of any playoff wins, maybe a draft pick or anything like that?
I think this might relate to like the fact that I told you, I'm like slowly got more and more into the Chargers, because I think if you were to ask like most Chargers fans, like if they had got into the Chargers in the mid like 2000s, their best memory would be like this 2008 playoff victory on the road versus like the Colts when Manning was MVP. Mm-hmm. But I feel like me personally, like there was this 2018 game versus the Chiefs that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. Where it was such an improbable win. And that season, actually, the Chargers were like neck and neck with the Chiefs, and just not in the division, but the entire AFC.
Yep.
Where they came back, they were down 14 with like 5 minutes to go, and they like get a touchdown. But the thing is, they're gonna like lose the game unless they can get a 3-and-out from Patrick Mahomes, which is like even that season, which was Patrick Mahomes like essentially rookie season.
Yep.
That seemed impossible, but they ended up getting the 3-and-out. Got the game tying touchdown at the end, and then ended up going for 2 to just win it outright, and it like won it. It was like the most high like suspense, high intensity fun game. So that's my sort of best like funnest Chargers game, I think. like me and my wife, like we were jumping up and down on the couch. And I mentioned earlier that we had like the 1-year-old son who we put the Chargers jersey on at halftime, and like we woke him up, and it was just like so fun. But it was just really, I think the fact that it came down to like the final play where it's just like, you win this, you're going to be like leading the AFC in wins. You lose, the Chiefs are going to be winning like the AFC. And it just was just like kind of incredible. I mean, they made the playoffs that year, won a playoff game. And I still think that like regular season game was like the funnest I can remember.
Yeah, you guys won that game 29-28. Mike Williams caught the touchdown with 4 seconds left in the game, and he ended up getting the 2-point conversion too. You guys went for the 2. You said, fuck it, we're going to win this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that makes sense when you get like...
Yeah, Mahomes, you're not going to give him back the ball.
Exactly. So it was just a ballsy game. That was probably Mike Williams' best game too, because actually I think he had like 2 receiving touchdowns and a rushing touchdown and caught the 2-point conversion. So it was kind of like he balled out that game.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Now, it's definitely not all good times being a fan of any team. Do you have a worse memory that you remember just being heartbroken?
Yeah, I'm going to sort of answer this in the same way that if like you were asked most Chargers fans, they would say like the Marlon McCree fumble game, which was like the one that capped the 2006 season. Okay. But again, I just personally was not as into the Chargers as it was back then as I am now. So my worst memory is probably actually the 2016 season opener again versus the Chiefs, where what happened was they were like destroying the Chiefs. And then at halftime, right before halftime, like at the 2-minute warning, Keenan Allen tore his ACL. You could just tell when it happened.
Yeah.
This is like, he's going to be out for the rest of the season, but you're like, all right, well, we got a 20-point lead on the Chiefs. At least we're going to beat them. And then you're like, okay, we got a 17-point lead on the Chiefs. So it's not a shutout anymore, but we're at least going to beat them. And then it became like, okay, we got a 10-point lead. Okay, now we got a 3-point lead. Oh, fuck. Like, is this going to go into overtime and then end up going to overtime? And so this game where, like, you knew that it was week 1, Keenan Allen's injured. You thought you were, like, going to get, like, a blowout win. Not only did you not get the blowout win, you lose the game. And I just remember just feeling like it's week 1 and the season's over. And they did pretty poorly that season. I think they went 5-11. But it just was, like, I think just the confluence of, like, comeback loss, key player tearing his ACL, week 1, it's just like this stew of like bad things happening. So I feel like I just remember like the rest of the day just feeling like dead inside.
Yeah, and it was a division loss.
Division 2.
It's just everything. I could see that. It feels like your season's over before it even started.
Yeah.
That game, you guys scored 3 first half touchdowns. You didn't score any in the second half, but the Chiefs scored 4 second half touchdowns, which brought them back. What was it? 24-3 to eventually win 33-27.
And there was like, it's also one of those like Chargers special teams games, because there was a few, at least one missed kick. It might've been a long one. So you can't get too mad, but then also it was like 2 minutes left in the game, and our punter like did like a 15-yard punt, and it was one of those ones where it was like, oh my god, like we just need to like stop the Chiefs from going down the field, and he just does that. The other thing that as a 49ers fan you might appreciate is Jason Verrett had one of like the craziest interceptions, just like one of those like snatch the ball from the guy, like where you don't even realize in real time that was an interception. So if you ever get a chance, you should check that out, because that was another one where it's like, the Chargers had like a 17-point lead. It's the 4th quarter. You get this insane interception. You think that puts them away.
That's it. Yeah.
That's going to be one that puts them away. And then it just ended up, they crawled back and it just sucked all around. I'm like, if you were to get like all the factors that could make a bad game, like they all sort of landed in that one game.
Yeah, that's a tough one. One that I remember, I just want to touch on it real quick. It was 2008 versus the Patriots. I'm sure you remember LT sitting on the bench with his helmet on, the visor going over. The Patriots end up kicking a last-minute field goal to win the game. That just for me as a fan of LaDainian Tomlinson and watching it, that was a tough one for me. And I feel like that's still one that they show to this day.
Yeah. The Patriots are also like, there's been, they've been a good team for a long time. So they're probably on the other end of like a lot of painful memories. But for Chargers fans, like they are on the definitely like they always deliver really painful memories. So like the 2000 game where they were like the best team in the league that season, they lose the Patriots. Next year, they make it all the way to the AFC championship game. Rivers tears his ACL the game before. They get knocked out by the Patriots. 2018, they were really good again, get knocked out by the Patriots in like this blowout. Even this season when like the Patriots weren't even good, and then they hand the Chargers their worst game of franchise history. So they're always just like definitely a nemesis.
Well, you're not the only one that's been on the end of those. Patriots have been handing those things out for almost 20 years now. And I'm very happy to see them struggling a little bit this year, or at least not making the playoffs, because I feel like, Patriots fans, this is how it is to be a regular fan of a regular team.
So, yeah, for sure. So we talked about your memories and everything. I have something to ask you about the current quarterback you guys have. Like I said, I give props to you guys for, but when you drafted him, I know he was the third quarterback chosen. Burrow went before him, Tua went before him. How did you feel? Did you want one of the quarterbacks more than Herbert? Like, how did you feel?
I was a bit probably like more pro Herbert than most.
Okay.
But I still was like, I'd rather, like everyone knew that the Bengals were going to take Burrow. So it's like, I want Tua, but if we don't get Tua, like I think most Chargers fans wanted Isaiah Simmons, but I was like, I want Herbert. There's obviously a whole quarterback. You can't win in this league without a quarterback. And, a lot of the stuff I felt like it was a little bit overblown because it was like, look how many screen passes he throws. But it's like, okay, that's not his fault that he's throwing a lot of screen passes. And I didn't see that much
college offense
badness in his tape. So I liked him. But obviously, like when you watch Tua, I think he popped a little bit more. But then I think kind of in retrospect, you're like, okay, he had Justin Jefferson. He had all these other like really good receivers, whereas Herbert had no one. And so I did like him at the time. So as soon as Tua came off the board, I was like, okay, let's pick Herbert.
Yeah, when Herbert was coming out, I felt he was a little bit sheltered in that Oregon offense. And when we got to see him truly for what he was his bowl game, and I loved it. And I was like, man, Herbert, okay, he might be something. Like, we'll see, because he's never been like the it guy, like where you see him like, okay, yeah, he's going to take over. Like when Tua came into the Alabama game at halftime against Georgia, it's like, dang, this guy's the kid. Like, this guy's the guy. And Burrow, the season that he had, his senior year of college was awesome. You never really get to see that from Herbert. And then when you saw that at the bowl game, I was like, okay, this guy might be something in the NFL, but we'll see what team he goes to. Then he went to the Chargers. I'm like, okay, he has a solid running back. He has a solid receiver game. Like, let's see. And then he comes out and destroys it. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, to come into a game where it's like, hey, I know you were going to be the second string, but you have to start because we accidentally punctured Tyrod's lung.
Yep. You have to start in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, again, that was versus the Chiefs, and he took him to overtime, which is like,
oh wow,
pretty crazy.
I was rooting for the kid, man. I wanted to because it's a rookie quarterback, and I was like, as soon as I remember when it happened, I texted Duran. I said, "What the hell is going on with 2020? What the hell?" And all of a sudden, like, he just takes him to overtime. I was like, "Damn, I hope this kid wins." What a crazy ass story.
Yeah.
Like, my first start.
Yeah, I remember actually when the game started and he was on the field, I'm like, okay, they're getting cute. They're running a trick play or like a little package, and then you're like, okay, he's still on the field
throwing.
Because even Tony Romo in the moment he was a Tony Romo game, and it's like, what's going on? What the because they had interviewed Tyrod. Like, I mean, he didn't get it's weird for a quarterback to get injured right before a game. Like, he was even on the injury report on the Friday before the game, so it's just like came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it caught us all by surprise. I remember that exact day, just everyone scrambling around being like, what's going on? And then, of course, the news came back of the punctured lung or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Moving on a little bit now to the future expectations for your team. This coming up draft, you guys have all 7 picks plus a 6th rounder. You're picking 13th overall. 4 in the top 110. Is there an area in the draft where you want to go? Is it maybe O-line to protect Herbert a little bit? Is it some pass rush? I know you got a couple guys in free agency coming up. Is there a direction you want to go?
I feel like I kind of like the philosophy of just like, offenses are more like stable than defenses. So I feel like they should just be like, we got this quarterback, let's just go all in, give him his weapons. And so the weapon could be linemen. So I just feel like they should go like linemen in the first and maybe like wide receiver, tight end in the second or whatever. I think there's a lot of directions you can go. And I think also when you're like picking 13, you can kind of justify anything. Like a few weeks ago, it looked like they were going to be like top 5 pick. And it's like, you can't go guard. You can't go tight end if you've got like a top 5 pick. But now you could go any direction. So yeah, I mean, I would love a guy like Jalen Waddle just because I feel like Herbert's got the arm. So get someone that's like really fast. Like, Keenan Allen's not fast. Mike Williams not fast. I feel like you just need someone that can like take the top off. But, again, maybe the smart thing to do would be get like a tackle. I've been dived into the tackle class. And honestly, when I watch a college tackle, I'm like, I have no idea whether this guy's going to be good. So
exactly.
A lot of people are kind of saying it's like Penny Sewell. I don't really know how you say his name.
Yeah, you said it right.
So I don't know if you like want to go tackle, like reach for tackle 13, or are those tackles reaches? I don't really know, but definitely offense. I feel like.
There you go.
I got to tell you this much: Penny Sewell is not a reach at where you guys picked.
Oh yeah, he's the one guy I know for sure is not a reach. But again, like people that are smarter than me, they can tell me this guy's a good tackle. But it seems like if you could get him, obviously that'd be great. But the other guys like Rashawn Slater or Samuel Cosme, I'm not really sure. I can't really. I don't know.
Yeah, Decker Shaw from Virginia Tech. Like I can tell when it comes to the draft time, I'll definitely reach out to you because we follow draft, for sure. But before that, I mean, you guys have to hire a head coach now. Do you have a head coach candidate in mind?
I'm glad you guys pushed the date of this interview back because if you'd asked me like a week ago, I've been giving you like 5 reasons they're keeping Anthony Lynn. Yeah, it was pretty stupid, but there's 2 guys that pop out to me. One would be Brian Dable of the Bills, just because like what he's been doing with Josh Allen is pretty crazy. And, there's some kind of similarities between Justin Herbert and Josh Allen in terms of like the physical skill set, like arm. The one thing with Brian Dable that's got me a little worried is actually if you kind of look at like every season prior to this, it's pretty like bad. This is the first time he's actually had a top 20 offense, which is kind of crazy. As 7 years as a coordinator. So that's got me a little worried. So the other guy I like a lot is Arthur Smith of the Titans.
Okay.
Definitely good candidate.
I think the similarities between Herbert and Tannehill are less than the similarities between him and Allen, but you can kind of see like physical, like guy that you can do bootlegs with and has like, the mobility, but it's not like Lamar Jackson. So the one thing though, is you kind of just wonder like the Titans have Derrick Henry and you're like, we don't have a Derrick Henry. Like, does his offense work without a Derrick Henry?
Mm-hmm.
But I still like him a lot. I'm a bit skeptical of like college coaches. And I also don't like the idea of a DC as a head coach, just because like then the offensive coordinator could be like poached up, a lot of people are talking about Robert Saleh, which could be cool, but I'm just like, well, if the offense starts cooking, then the OC is going to be gone. You could have got like this lack of continuity. So for me, it's Dable and Smith would be the 2.
Yeah, that's a thing that just came up for us, and it really made me think of it. When you get a defensive guy, how those offensive guys just get poached off so quickly. And, I didn't really think of that until our last interviewer mentioned that. What about Eric Bieniemy? Would you be interested in bringing over a chief?
A lot of people are high on Bieniemy, but for me, I'm just like, okay, just forget what is on the Chiefs besides Bieniemy. You got like Andy Reid, who's like an offensive genius. You got Patrick Mahomes. You got Travis Kelce. You got Tyreek Hill. You got Sammy Watkins. You got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You have all these pieces. Like
Le'Veon Bell.
Yep. Like, can you tell me that like Eric Bieniemy's the reason that they're good?
Yeah, he's set up for success.
Exactly. And so I just feel like I don't feel that great, but if you look at like Smith and Dable, they're actually like under defensive coaches.
Mm-hmm.
They had quarterbacks that like were kind of not like peak quarterbacks until they got with their coordinators. Well, Dable was with Allen the whole time, but you just feel a lot more confident that those guys have like value added. So that's why I like them.
It's super hard too with Andy Reid's, disciples, because look at Matt Nagy, who's kind of on the hot seat. Doug Peterson's not having the greatest year. So Bieniemy is definitely a question mark. I totally agree with you. But yeah, Arthur Smith, and I think that's definitely a hot name for sure. What about Joe Brady? He's out there. What do you think about him?
I feel like, yeah. Well, the first thing is like I want to see the Panthers be good first, and also like do what he's doing for more than 1 year. I just think that
makes sense.
Yeah, like my reservation with the Dable that I mentioned is like he's only been good for 1 year, whereas like Brady, they were like overachieving maybe, but it's not even that good in offense. He's only been doing it for like half a year, and I'm a bit skeptical of college coaches just because the game's so different. So I feel like he's like a year away from executing a head coaching gig. But I do know the Chargers are interviewing him.
Mm-hmm.
They announced. I've never seen a team announce this, but they said they're going to interview 12 coaches.
Wow.
So I'm like, basically any guy who's like even remotely on anyone's Chargers are interviewing.
Hey, they're doing their thing, but they're doing their due diligence, and in this era where they're pretty much doing it over Skype, you could fit in as many as days you got, pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah. So moving on a little bit to, you guys got a couple contracts that are coming up that may or may not be back next year. I just want to know if you are prioritizing any of these guys. We know Melvin Gordon's coming up, Hunter Henry, Mike Pouncey, and Forrest Lamp. Those are two linemen that you guys, have been a staple there. And Nick Vigil. There's a number of other guys out there, but is there 1, 2, 3 of those guys that you really want to prioritize and bringing back?
Yeah, I'd say like Hunter Henry for sure is like one guy. He's just got really good rapport with Herbert. So, and you need a tight end, and he's like basically our only good one.
Yep.
Michael Davis, corner, undrafted.
Michael Davis, yep.
He's like quietly become like a really good corner, probably best on the team. And that's something because there's Casey Hayward and Chris Harris. And then I think Dan Feeney, our center.
Okay.
We have like a really bad line, but you can't like swap out like 4 guys in one season.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's like okay, and I think the staff really likes him. So I think he'll stick around. But then Mike Pouncey I think is gone. I think Melvin Ingram's gone just because like they already essentially drafted a replacement. He's just kind of old. He got injured. And then Forrest Lamp, he was kind of like he'd been like the first 3 years of his rookie contract like not even playing, and he finally gets playing time just due to injury, and he's kind of been a bit of a dud. I mean, as a second rounder, he's kind of like an injury bust, but then once he got playing time, he became like an actual bust.
I know he was highly regarded coming out of college, and just looking at these names, Forrest Lamp, Feeney, I can't believe these guys' contracts are already up. It seemed like it was just a couple years ago that they were drafted.
Yeah, it's just 2017 like draft class. Actually, like the whole entire draft class had started at one point, so they've been like really integral to the team for a while. Mm-hmm. But then it's kind of came up so quick that they're gone, or they're on their way out. Some of them.
That's nuts.
Yeah, I remember you guys' trade with the Panthers. It was Okung for Trey Turner. I thought that was kind of a weird trade because it seemed more of like just a exchange. And then when you guys got Bulaga, and I was like, great, you guys have Bulaga, but he's on the end of his, he brings that leadership, but he's pretty much done after this year, I would say. Maybe I'll give him 1 more year, but I think he's pretty much done.
Yeah. I remember a bunch of Chargers fans like with that trade happening thinking it was so like lopsided in our favor. I'm like, there's not lopsided trades in the NFL. Like, I guess maybe like you can point to a few, but yeah, he seems like Turner is on his like last legs. Bulaga just been really injured. Pouncey was supposed to be a starter, so like our starting line like just completely fell fell away by like week 1. So it's been kind of a mess for years, offensive line.
Yeah, one guy that was like kind of a shocker to me was the guy from Sioux Falls, Trey
Pipkins.
Pipkin. Yeah, it was just kind of surprising that you guys picked him that high. I think it was like the 3rd round.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we'll see how he does. And like you said, it just wasn't the best. So
yeah, our GM Tom Telesco, he's like known for being like just kind of going like really weird in specifically the 3rd round. And so like
okay,
if the draft's good, then the 3rd rounder sucks. If the draft sucks, then the 3rd rounder's good. So like his ever probably is Keenan Allen.
Yep.
3rd rounder, but then
3rd rounder.
3rd rounders, it's like just a complete wasteland of like bad names.
Yeah, I think you guys are actually pretty good at drafting from 2011 on. I mean, I usually only look at 1st, 2nd rounders because that's pretty much all you could guarantee in the NFL, especially when it comes to the draft. Starting in 2011, Corey Legent, Melvin Ingram, the year that you did mention Keenan Allen was in the 3rd round, but DJ Fluker, Jason Verrett, Melvin Gordon, Joey Bosa, Hunter Henry, Mike Williams. But all these guys are, and then going up Derwin James, who's been injured, but we all know he's a great player. You guys have been hitting on those 1st round picks, and I think that's what really matters.
Oh yeah, for like you want to get like the 5th, 6th, 7th rounders, right? But
that's what makes it the best. Yeah.
Yeah, but 1st rounders, yeah, like Telesco, I feel like if there's one thing you can say like he's good at is like not screwing up the 1st round.
One guy that I didn't really watch this year, but I definitely remember him in college. You guys took him in the 1st round, was Kenneth Murray. How did you feel about him this year?
So he basically kind of got I think put in a role that they didn't plan for him to play because like literally 7 snaps into the season or something like that.
Yeah.
Drew Tranquil got injured. And then I feel like
he had to fill in.
Up. Then you get Derwin James injury.
Yep.
He was a lot in the box. So I think he was asked to play a role that they didn't initially plan for.
Yep.
He looks okay. I would say like, I think linebackers in general struggled this year, like rookie ones.
Yeah.
He like is kind of like a Dalton line of like draft picks in terms of like, he's just kind of playing exactly like what you expect. Maybe no better, no worse.
Yeah, I felt the way linebackers are going nowadays. I feel like linebackers need to be the running backs on defense. And to me, he was, he was kind of more of a power guy. And when I saw him go in the 1st round, I was a little bit iffy on it. But that's why I wanted to ask you about him.
Yeah, I was definitely iffy on that because he came from the Big 12 and you guys traded up for him. So I was kind of skeptical about that. I mean, he came from the Big 12. Big 12 is not really known for their defense. If he came from the Big 10 or the SEC, that'd be a way different story. But I had my skeptics about him. I was super bummed by Tranquil because I hate Notre Dame, but when they come into the league, that's when I start rooting for him. And I love Tranquil. I mean, everything they said about him in the Super Bowl or the Senior Bowl was amazing. And then dating all the way back to your guys' 1st round and Jason Verrett. He went to the JC in our area for sure, so I got to watch him there. And seeing him ball out at TCU, then seeing him ball out his few years that he did great in San Diego were amazing to see. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to Kenneth Murray, I wasn't a fan of him coming out. I really wasn't.
It's really funny because I remember after the draft, like people were super questionable about the Herbert pick, and I was like, that one's a no-brainer to me. But
definitely, yeah,
the Murray
trading up,
linebacker,
and it's not like he was like known for coverage. I think just in like 2020 NFL, like
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it just
you want those guys that are like 6'2", 220, 225 that are just covering tight ends, running backs out of the backfield, and he just wasn't one of those guys to me.
Yeah, like I was like I don't really watch college football very much, but like when it gets time to draft season, I like, okay, what are the positions they might pick? And I didn't even bother looking at any linebackers because I was just like, there's no way they're going linebacker early. I didn't think they'd pick one before the 4th round, and then they end up trading up into the 1st. So I was just like, okay, let me check this guy out now. I'm like, okay, I just didn't like it, but he's been fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were still so many like other draft picks that I would have chosen for you guys. I mean,
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Of course.
Diggs went after that. I think he would have been utilized really good for you guys. Gross Matos went after you guys. Even Ezra Cleveland, he would have been a good for you guys. I mean, I was just really shocked. I mean,
It's still early.
Yeah.
It's early, but at the same time, it's like I don't know. Maybe I wasn't a fan of Murray coming out, but
I remember when it was announced, like, oh, suddenly the Chargers trade up, they're on the clock. Everybody and their mother thought they were getting a lineman because they had really big offensive line needs. They ended up getting a linebacker, and they didn't actually take a single lineman in the draft, which was just like a shock. That draft is a bit funny because like getting Herbert, like you're like, that's a home run draft, but everybody lost Herbert actually has been like really disappointing. Like Murray,
Josh Kelly, Joe Reed, KJ Hill.
Yeah, so like Joe Reed's been mostly a healthy scratch. KJ Hill has done much. He bobbled like fumbled a punt. I'm blanking on the term for that. Muffed a punt. There we go. And lost us a game. So it's just like the little impact they've made beyond Herbert has been like kind of negative. So we'll see how it plays out. But again, I think the Herbert pick makes it a home run draft.
Got it. I only got one more question. G, you got anything else?
No, man. Go ahead.
This is just one thing that it's a personal thing for me. I'm a huge Desmond King fan. He fell all the way to the 5th round to you guys in 2017. I felt like the first couple years that you guys used him was perfect. He was playing like that Joker role. He was doing kick and punt returns. He was doing it all. And then this new coaching staff kind of came in. They didn't really utilize him in the same way. He goes to the Titans, and you see he's doing pretty good in the Titans. I just want to know how you felt about Desmond King on the Chargers, and do you really think you guys should have moved on for him, or you should have found the right position for him?
Well, sorry. Actually, he's had the same coaching staff the whole time.
Oh, okay.
He was drafted in 2017, which is when they brought in Anthony Lynn and Gus Bradley. So he's been
my mistake.
Oh yeah. So, but he was a fan favorite for a long time, and I mean, not for a long time, for a few years.
Yep.
And he was an All-Pro in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is, I feel like in 2019, I think he was kind of a little bit of a knucklehead in terms of like there was some special team stuff where he's just like, "What are you doing?" And most of the special teams, his stats kind of dropped off, and then there was something late in the season, and I don't think we'll ever know what it was, but they like made him a healthy scratch. His snap count was slashed after that.
Yep.
They bring in Chris Harris Jr. They basically like make him redundant, and I think that there was just some off-field thing that we'll never know about.
Yeah,
that made him go out of favor. And the other thing is, after that happened, you start seeing him. This is like such a 2020 thing, but like chirping on Twitter a little bit, like he's time. And then what? Like the final straw was, or maybe not the final straw, but like one of his final acts was like there was that big like thing, they had a loss to the Broncos where they were up 21 earlier this season and they blew it. And then like Desmond King's like on Twitter congratulating Broncos players. You're like, okay, maybe there's just some like knucklehead stuff that you have to be in the room with him to know. And I think that's what kind of did him in. And I think at least they got some trade value back, 6th round pick.
Yep.
For
a little bit.
Sign anyway. So I wish things worked out, but I think that there's just something there.
I didn't know that. I didn't know about any of the off-field stuff. I definitely think they should have got more than a 6th round pick for him. But I mean, the things that you're saying kind of it makes sense now.
Yeah, I think the NFL world is kind of small, and so like people know like if someone gets a reputation as a knucklehead, it's gonna everyone's gonna like know about it, and so I think that's maybe what depresses value. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be telling what the Titans end up doing with him.
Yeah.
Right, for sure.
All right, John, I think that's it for us today. Thanks for joining us. You could follow John you could follow the Chargers subreddit from the link below. Everything's listed below. And thanks for joining us one more time.
Thanks for having me.
John, thanks for having me. Thanks
Have a
for
good one.
Taking time to hang out with us for sure. Stay a little bit after. We got some questions for you, off the air.
Oh, sure.
But Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining in. Again, subscribe, share, hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you guys. Later.
Later.
Later.